Yo, what's going on, guys? What's going on, Crypto Kitty? No cars. What's going on? It's been a while since I've done one of these, man. I used to do these quite often. Leonard Gonzalez. Yo, Bitcoin to 7K. What makes you say that? What's going on? Paper up, bro. Am I first? Yes, I think you're first. You were first. What's going on, guys? Hey, what's up, Plantush? Yeah, man. Omoni, yeah, I'm live. I haven't been live in a long time. I recognize that. But my schedule has been kind of hectic, but nothing new. We'll give a chance for a few people to jump on board. Hey, what's up, Eric? How are you? Yeah, we got a bunch of people coming into the room now. Oh, you're asking if you got to play EDM in the background. Dude, I would if one, if I liked EDM, and two, if I wasn't worried about a copyright strike. But no, maybe I'll have a playlist for the for future ones, but might not be the EDM that you're asking for. Still waiting for that 21 weekly MA touch. Yes, Zachary, still waiting for that. What's up, Farouk? Uh, so Leonard, you were asking if Bitcoin was going to 7K. Well, let's look at it real quick. The reason that people are saying that is probably because of the whole talk of the CME gaps, right? If you look at the Bitcoin futures chart on the CME, you'll see that there's a gap, and a lot of, I would say, well, let's just say a lot of crypto YouTubers believe that we're gonna have to close that gap somehow. Now, here's why that doesn't make sense, right? The whole talk of gaps doesn't make sense to me, and it doesn't make sense because essentially the CME, right, follows traditional market hours. So there's an open and a close. Okay, so naturally there's obviously going to be gaps. It's closed on the weekends. It's closed on holidays. It closes after 4:30 p.m. or 5 p.m. or whatever it is, and of course that's going to create gaps. There isn't a chart is basically a collection of traders' mentalities. And saying that, the bulk of traders are looking at this Bitcoin chart and then are also looking at the CME chart and are trading with the intention of closing that gap. I mean, it's kind of far fetched to me, right? So I don't think that if that's the reason that you were asking, hey, what's up, Sean? How are you? Uh, if that's the reason that you're asking, then no, I don't think that we're going to 7K because of that. Now, if you look at the 200-day moving average, which is this green line here, right? And you look at where it's currently at around 7,700. So if you're saying that, Bitcoin, there's a possibility that it will retrace and want to retest that. It already retested, obviously, the 50, the 21 EMA, the 100, which is this yellow line. It even dipped below it earlier in the month. So if you're saying that it might hit the retest the 200 MA, yeah, it certainly might, but it's not because of the reason that we need to resolve a gap on a separate chart that is really tailored for a separate group of traders. Like, nobody's looking at the CME chart and saying that we need to resolve that. That's just, to me, that's just garbage, right? The whole talk of gaps does come from the traditional markets, but it's not comparing two different markets, two uniquely different charts, saying that one needs to resolve the other. It's looking at the same chart. So if you look at something like, let's look at a stock. So if you look at something like UWT, this is the ETF that follows crude oil, and you see, certain gaps here created by market opens and market close. And, there is a theory that we eventually would need to close these gaps. But we're talking about the same chart, right? If the audio is low, huh? Really? One second. Let's see if this works here. I can't tell any reason why the audio would be low. What about now? Good? Let me know if it's good. All right. It should be good. If it's not, let me know. But yeah, it should be good now. But even more? Let's see. Okay, cool. That's great. Audio's good. All right. So yeah, back to what I was saying. We're looking at, if you're looking at the same chart, right? This is a stock chart and it's got gaps in it. Okay, fine. Yeah, obviously there's a theory that you would have to resolve these gaps on the same chart, and the same chart is where the collection of traders are using this chart to trade by. But comparing two different charts for two unique markets where traders there isn't an overlap of traders between the both. Like, most of you that trade Bitcoin, how many of you have traded on the CME futures? I'm sure it's a very low percentage, if not zero. So I don't think that we're going to, I don't think that Bitcoin is looking to resolve any gaps on a separate chart. Now, if we look at the formation that it's forming on the 1 day, this to me now looks more like a descending triangle. And we've actually successfully traded, if you follow the trade alerts, we've actually traded this pretty successfully because the pattern is rather predictable at the moment, right? You can essentially short at the resistance and buy and long at the support. And as long as it stays within this pattern, then you will most likely, your trades have a higher chance of playing out and netting you money, right? Trend is your friend until the end, and currently this is the trend. And you see that the volume is rather low compared to this high note that we hit at the middle and end of July. So I do think that in the short term, Bitcoin does have a little more bearish action going for it. But in the long term, I'm still bullish on Bitcoin. And we'll take a look at the long-term charts. And somebody was asking about the 21 weekly EMA. And then I'll go back to the chat and take some of your questions. So let us look at Bitcoin on Bitstamp. And let's see, EMA. Okay. So if you look at the 21 EMA, it's this white line here. And I was saying that this is the longest amount of time that's surpassed without testing the 21 EMA. The 21 EMA, it's a rather short moving average, and it's an EMA, so it weights recent price activity more so than previous price activity, right? It's not like a simple moving average where, regardless of time in history or recent time, it weights every single candle the same. In the EMA, it weights the more recent price action heavier. Anyway, but we haven't tested the 21 EMA, which is currently above 9,000, which is good, because if we do fall, say, to 9,100 or 9,200, which is something that we've done a couple times last month, it's not that drastic. And I think, for one, it's for sure going to happen. We're for sure going to test the 21 EMA. Just depends on at what price level the 21 EMA on the weekly will be. But for sure, we're going to hit it. It's just a matter of what price it's going to be. Let's look at the chat real quick. All right. I'm going to go back to some of the questions on the chat. Let's see. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Hi, buddy. What's good? What's up, Sean? Do you really think Bakkt will make a big short-term price impact? Define short-term. Yeah, I do think Bakkt will make a short-term impact, maybe on a couple of candles in the short term, but I don't think that it's really going to be the game changer that people think. I think over time it might be, because it will allow traditional people in the traditional markets, just like UWT, how you can speculate on crude oil without ever having to touch a barrel of crude oil, or GLD, which is a stock that we've been killing it on recently. And we'll talk about gold in a second. But you could speculate on gold without ever having to touch a gold bar. Same thing with the Bitcoin physically backed futures. You'll be able to, essentially trade it just like this without ever having to touch Bitcoin. And that's what traders want, right? Like, I've never, you know, I haven't seen a gold bar physically in so long. I've never seen a barrel of oil, yet I can speculate on the prices of these commodities, and people will be able to do so on Bitcoin without having to mess with Bitcoin addresses and whatnot. So I do think that, you know, that is definitely going to cause a short term spike, but I think in the long run it will benefit Bitcoin to be able to speculate on Bitcoin without having to actually you know, buy physical Bitcoin. You can just trade it on a market, just like GLD or UWT or whatever. All right, let us go back to some of the questions. Was there any other question? There was a question, I think, on Plantish had a quote. Yes, they're playing with Theta and T Fuel. I've noticed a very significant hidden bearish divergence. What are your thoughts? Shahzad Chima or Kima, pardon my apologies, but you were asking that there was a significant bearish divergence. What are you talking about on Bitcoin? Huh. You might be talking about Bitcoin one day. Let's see. Bearish divergence. I don't see it on Bitcoin one day. Maybe on the weekly. Yeah, BTC, but on the one day or the weekly or what? Oh, on the 4 hour. Say that, man. Say that. All right, and then I'll go over Ethereum and then BNB and LTC because that's being asked in the chat. But yeah, looking at Bitcoin on the 4 hour, do I see bearish divergence? Not not really, man. No, not really. I mean, between which time frames? Maybe you're talking about. Are you talking about? Are you talking about this? This hidden bearish divergence here? Not sure, but yeah, I mean, the fact that to me, the fact that Bitcoin is overbought on the 4 hour, and it tends to fall every time Bitcoin has been overbought on the 4 hour. You do see a decline thereafter. I do think that that is a pretty big deal. However, the pattern that it's forming is actually rather bullish, right? It's forming this cup and handle pattern that you see here. That is actually a bullish pattern. So let us move to Ethereum since somebody actually asked about that. I think it was Keith. What's up, Keith? So you asked, what is your long-term sentiment on Ethereum? Well, as of late, I've really turned into, and as of late, I mean, you know, for most of last year and this year, I've really turned into more of a Bitcoin maximalist, I'll say, and the sense. I'll say that with a caveat, not in the way that some of these other guys are Bitcoin maximalists, but I will say that I if I had to pick one crypto, and you know, I was only allowed to pick one crypto, and I couldn't look at my portfolio for 5 years, and I had to put all my money into that crypto, it would definitely be Bitcoin, right? I don't really consider the long term viability of some of these cryptos. I'm not. I think that their future is potentially tenuous, and I really trade them on a day to day or week to week basis. I'm not looking to hold any of these cryptos long term besides Bitcoin. Now things can change, the market dynamics can change, the fundamentals can change, but you know, I mean, ETH at one point was trading at just a tenth of Bitcoin's price, right? So when Bitcoin was 10,000, ETH was 1,000. When Bitcoin was almost 20,000, ETH was, I think, somewhere around almost $2,000, and it has really fallen from its heights. And I don't know that a lot of these cryptos get back to. I mean, Bitcoin Cash was trading at something like $5,000, right? I don't know that that Bitcoin Cash even gets to the levels that it once saw. So let me go. Let me look at a long term Ethereum chart. I think Bitfinex has a pretty long term chart, but my long term outlook on ETH is not great. My target for 2019 was I believe it was I can't remember what it was now, but I think it was somewhere around 250. That was my 2019 target for ETH. But there's a lot of reasons that I don't uh, really think that ETH is its speculative value is going to ever get as high as it was, and that's because a lot of these ICOs essentially created ERC20 tokens and sold the coin that they created for Ethereum, right? And then when people paid them in ETH and they gave them their shitcoin, then those people dumped their Ethereum on the market when the price of Ethereum was really high and exchanged it for fiat, and that's how they essentially made money. And that's why you see, that's why you see ETH really taking, really took a nosedive because of that dynamic, right? So, Brad Anderson, great to see you live streaming. Been following your channel for a while. Thanks, Brad. Thank you for the love. Do you think alts will get wrecked? Alts have already gotten wrecked. Yes, I mean most alts have lost, over 90% of their value. So I don't need to think that alts will get wrecked. They have gotten wrecked. And I was just talking about even something like Ethereum that was trading at, if you look at its highs, even something like Ethereum was trading at $1,500 and is now $173. So yes, of course, alts got wrecked. And who know? Like I said, who knows if we'll ever get back to the levels that we saw. But a lot of people got into crypto without really having any sort of plan. They didn't. They didn't have any exit strategy. Most people that I talked to in the community when they started, they didn't even know what a stop limit was. They pressed buy. A lot of them were coaxed into buying because of some YouTubers that were shilling coins, that were getting paid to shill coins, right? And they were coaxed into buying these coins, and they didn't really have a plan for what they would do afterwards. And it's tragic, but a lot of people are holding bags of coins that they bought at the all-time high. A lot of people bought Ripple at $3 and $2.80 and $2.50. I don't know if Ripple ever gets back to $3. Who knows? But as a trader, that's not my concern. All I'm looking to do is live to trade another day. And I do think that Bitcoin has long-term viability. I was talking to actually Sean, who I saw on the chat just a second ago, but I was talking to him yesterday in our one-on-ones. And I was basically saying that, I think Bitcoin is past the point of being able to call it a tulip or a bubble or, monopoly money or whatever the naysayers in the financial markets like to call Bitcoin. It's been on the market for almost 10 years. It's taken a beating and came back and clawed its way back to reach, five-figure prices. I mean, it's over $10,000. Whoever thought that would happen? Besides, people that were, the few people that were bullish on Bitcoin, or the few people in the crypto community that are encouraged, or I should say that are invigorated by the concept of cryptocurrency. But people in finance, the naysayers, nobody thought Bitcoin would get back to $10,000, right? And so I think Bitcoin is past the point of being a tulip or a fraud or a monopoly money or whatever, especially the fact that we're going to be seeing physically backed ETFs, just like I was talking about, GLD, the gold backed ETF. Like these are actually backed by the Spider Gold Trust is actually backed by actual gold bullion, right? The Spider Gold Trust has to go out and buy gold bullion to back every single dollar that traders put into this ETF. The same thing will happen with the Bitcoin ETF. That's why it's a big deal. It's different than the Bitcoin futures that are currently on the CBOE and CME. Those are cash settled, right? They don't have to go out and buy Bitcoin to back those futures, whereas the backed ETF will have to. So anyway, all right. Hey, what's up, Sean? I was just talking about you. Sari says, thanks for all you do. Really appreciate your insights. Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in. So let us go over some of these coins that people were discussing. I think somebody, BNB and LTC. All right. So let's go over BNB and LTC, and leave your coin requests in the chat if there's anything that you want me to cover, or even stocks or whatever. We don't even have to isolate it to just cryptocurrency, but let's talk about BNB. So I assume you mean BNB versus USD. So let's talk about this real quick. Fritz says, just be careful with alt. Yes, of course. And BNB, I actually did send out a long-term trade alert for BNB here. And there is a reason that I did that, and I'll go over this. But BNB has been one of the best performing coins of 2019. I mean, when we first started scaling in back in December, BNB was wrecked. It was like $4.50, climbed all the way up to about $40, so 10x in 2019, which is crazy. But BNB currently is below the 200 MA. It's sitting at the 0.5 fib level. The volume is not so great, and I do think that we might see another hit in September, possibly to the 0.618 fib level, especially when Binance does shut down their U.S. operations, right? And they are looking to, they will be, according to the announcement, they will be releasing a U.S. version only, U.S. only version of their site that will probably include some sort of KYC requirements and ID requirements, right? So I do think that once they shut down and we don't have that U.S. volume, U.S. accounts for a huge percentage of the worldwide volume. It's U.S. and Asia basically that are the two biggest volume contributors to the crypto market. So, you might see BNB take a hit because of the lack of volume. You might even see Bitcoin take a hit because a lot of Bitcoin is handled on Binance, and a lot of Binance transactions come from the U.S. So once that is shut down, until they on-ramp the US only version of Binance, you might see a hit in prices because of that volume reduction, that significant volume reduction. But long term, I think BNB is still a viable play here, and I think that they continue to do the right thing. They operate within a transparent, they operate within transparent boundaries, and they, as much as a crypto exchange can, right? Like, I think they are the most transparent crypto exchange on the market currently, and they try to play within the rules of each locale that they're in. Case in point, the U.S. market, they're trying to play by the rules and make sure that whatever they're deploying in the U.S. is according to the financial standards and laws that we have here. So, all right. Hello, boss. Hey, what's up, Beto? How are you doing? Samuel Adams. Nice name, man. Nice name. How's Link? Well, let's look at Link. I did send out a trade alert for Link yesterday, so let us take a look at it. Looking at Link, you'll see that Link has fallen to the 200 MA, right? And this is part of the reason that I started scaling into Link here, is because it fell something, I think it was something like 60% that it fell from the highs that we saw back in June. If you see here, yeah, it's almost 60% that it fell, and it is now finding some support at the 200 MA. It does not like to be below the 200 MA. If you go all the way back and look at Link's past, ever since the 200 MA was established, right, going all the way back to April 2018, it has fallen below, but it's just blipped below it, right? It hasn't significantly dropped below it. And you see here that it is